Personally, I always like seeing guns that are a little more unique. If this gun isn't immediately familiar, I don't really blame you. Chalk it up to lack of movie or video game references, the IMFDB page on this gun is barely a page long. This is the KWC 24/7 gas blowback, which is based on the revised G2 version of the real PT 24/7 produced by Taurus of Brazil. It's not to be confused with KWC's earlier non-blowback 24/7, which was based on the first generation and does not share any parts or magazines. Now, we've reviewed the KWC Model 17 as well as the M92, and both models left me quite impressed, especially for the price point. Now, this one comes in at the same price point, so let's see if KWC can make it 3 for 3. Let's take a look. We begin with the packaging. Standard KWC fare for anyone who's owned a KWC before. You get a one-piece cardboard box, and the gun is wrapped in a plastic bag with the magazine. You get a manual, KWC catalog, Allen key to swap CO2, packet of BBs, and 2 extra grip panels. It says it comes with 3 on the box, and the medium one comes installed on the gun, so no, you aren't missing one. The manual is the fold-out variety, pretty standard operating procedures. English is decent, but with a few gems, like make sure you don't load BBs casually. It's a serious business. It may cause the dry firing. Really glad to see a full exploded parts diagram at the end of the manual. This gun is completely devoid of trademarks other than a few KWC logos. This will surely annoy your buddies as they're trying to guess what gun this is. This gun certainly has an identity crisis, and we can see influence from Glock, Smith & Wesson, Walther, and even the US Army's new SIG M17. I'm not gonna say this gun is gorgeous, but I have to admit it's growing on me. I like that sloping downwards cut on the slide, and the blocky front end looks pretty good. The finish is one of the nicest we've seen from KWC and has a very smooth matte finish that's a shade lighter than the rest of the frame, and I quite like it. The silver barrel is semi-matte and impressively, after about 400 shots, has barely a scratch on it. The magazine has minimal wear as well. I'm glad KWC is upping their finish game. This gun has a full metal upper along with a polymer lower, just like the real PT 24/7. On our scales, it comes in at 845 grams, which is somewhat of a sweet spot. The real one actually comes in a bit less at 794 grams, though that one's probably unloaded. For reference, an Umarex Glock is about 650 grams. Center of balance is nearly perfect right at the trigger guard, though it is a touch rear balanced. Having a good center of balance means the gun feels settled in the hands, and this one feels pretty good. Looking at ergonomics, this is truly a full-time ambidextrous pistol with identical controls on either side, no flipping controls required. In particular, the magazine release is pretty cool, as it's a press inwards from either side and not a downwards release like most ambi releases. The slide release is like a Glock, except a little bit wider, which I think is a good thing. If you pop in the magazine with gusto, it automatically drops the slide, which may not be for everyone, but certainly speeds up reloads. The grip has a squared off profile, similar to a Glock, and the texture is similar as well. If you like Glock grips, this one should fit you well. The backstrap system is always nice to see, but you actually have to pop out a pin to swap them out. But once it's in there, fitment is tight. I really like that the large backstrap has a beaver tail extension, and it makes the trigger to beaver tail distance perfect for me. My only gripe about the grip is more to do with the trigger. It sits a little further down relative to the grip, meaning naturally I tend to pull the top of the trigger. This wouldn't be much of an issue, except the trigger safety won't actually disengage. A few of us at the store had the same issue and thought the gun was actually unsafe when it wasn't. The iron sights up top are standard 3-dot, and I'm happy to see adjustment for both windage and elevation. The shake test revealed an average amount of noise, mainly in the outer barrel. It didn't have much magazine play, which is pretty common. Slide play is there, and it's not too bad, but is a little worse at the front. Barrel is exceptionally tight at the front, but sits pretty loose in the chamber, which is likely the cause of that noise in the shake test. Even so, the inner barrel does not move with the chamber, so it shouldn't affect accuracy. Magazine fitment is tight, and it inserts with a nice positive click. Not quite as addictive as the DS that we just looked at, but still one of the nicest polymer frame magazine inserts we felt. The magazine itself holds 18 rounds with one in the chamber. The box says 16, the manual says 17, and I tested 18, and there's still some give in that follower. CO2 slides in through the base and is tightened with a metal cap. Magazine is pretty standard dimensions for all your magazine pouches, but as far as we know, it's not compatible with any other magazines. Let's take a look at that trigger. There's no dead travel and tension immediately ramps up. At the apex of the tension, the trigger breaks with a rounder feeling break, and then there's 1 millimeter of over travel. The reset is near the start of travel, but it's super loud with a nice tactile feedback. Overall, travel is pretty long, and without a clean wall, this trigger isn't gonna win any competitions. As a carry pistol on the field though, it's smooth enough and the reset is nice enough to be acceptable. Diving into the internals, this gun comes apart like a Glock. Mag out, slide down the takedown lever, and the slide comes right off. Compared to KWC's own Model 17, the internals are very similar but does not share any parts. Check out that recoil spring. It has 3 separate springs that engage as the slide moves back, protecting the gun from harsh recoil and gives you a nice kick as well. Comparing lowers, the 24/7 seems to be a similar design with a trigger bar and hammer, but also looks to be a little beefed up, which should mean good things for reliability. Onto the range now, it clocks in just under 300 feet per second, which is perfect for most indoor fields. Consistency is pretty good, staying about the 290 mark all the way until about 90 shots. Incredibly, on one CO2, it actually reset the chrono counter and managed to squeeze out 107 shots. Remember, this isn't a non-blowback and it kicks hard. Shooting some targets now, out of the box, Hop was set a little bit high. Once dialed in, I have to say I was pretty impressed. Sights were spot on out of the box. It's certainly no race pistol, but it's easily as good, if not better, than many stock pistols I've tested, and the only thing holding it back for double taps was that longer trigger pull. That tight front barrel plate definitely seems to help with consistency, and I was able to nail the hanger a couple times. As for shooting feel, it seems most of that CO2 power is diverted into the blowback because this thing kicks like a champ. As much as I knock on CO2 pistols, there is no debating that CO2 kicks harder than green gas. Luckily, that 3-stage recoil spring takes out most of the hard impact, so it should be kicking hard for many magazines all day long. You could almost say 24/7. And there you have it, the KWC 24/7 gas blowback. When I first took this gun out of the box, I didn't think I'd like it. Initial impressions aside, there's quite a lot to like about this gun. Full-time ambidextrous controls are always nice. Adjustable sights, a really strong kick, and 100 shots per CO2 makes nice even better. But of course, the one thing holding this gun back is that trigger. KWC, please make it a little bit better. Give it a nice wall and shorten that travel. Don't get me wrong, it's certainly usable, but in a market that's really competitive, this one should be better. If you're looking for a budget CO2 pistol, give the 24/7 a look. If you don't mind that trigger, this is a really good gun for a really good price. As always, thanks so much for watching. Make sure you subscribe if you want to support the channel, and we'll catch you on the next one.